Hey, what's up everyone? We're going to take the next couple of videos getting our payload project up from 3.5 to the current version, which at the time of this recording is, I believe, 3.11. So 3.11 is what we're aiming for, and then each time a new release is put out to the public, I'm going to try and cover it immediately. So this has been a little bit delayed. Most of the project that I've been working on recently has been in 3.5, but some new features have come out, so we wanted to make sure that we covered those. So we're going to jump into that starting with 3.6, but before we get started, don't forget to check and make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, enroll in notifications, and make sure that you are seeing whenever a new PayloadCMS video is released by me. And if you like the content, please just leave a like and share it with someone who also might like it. So we're going to come over here and we can see that we have our payload packages and our dependencies, and they're all set to 3.5. And so if you did this from a clone or a copy of a PayloadCMS template, these are typically all going to say latest. I needed to pin these down to 3.5 for some of the stuff that I was working on, but now we're going to take some time and go through each individual update and see what needs to be done and what's new in each update. So we'll start by just putting all of these at 3.6, and you'll need to do this for any payload package that you have. So I believe that's all I've got, and then you're going to do pnpm I and let that run its course. So we see here in version 3.6 that in migrations, both session and DB are exposed now in the active transaction with the database. So this is for primarily your Postgres or your relational databases, so Postgres and SQLite. This also consolidates the create and duplicate operations, allows where and payload.jobs.run, so you have the ability to run jobs in payload. We won't cover that here, but you do have that ability now. And then there's this suppress hydration warning property that's been added to the payload config admin options. So let's dig into that a little bit. So what this does is that if there are intentional differences between what you want to render on the front end and what is actually being rendered, typically Next will throw a hydration error, or I guess React will throw that error. And what this does is it allows you to choose to suppress that warning or not. So if there's a mismatch, it will suppress those errors. So most of these bug fixes here don't really apply to any of the projects that we've been working on, but do know that if you are facing any issues, you might want to look through the bug fixes here. And then there are a couple of refactors to make the code more concise, as well as some documentation errors that have been fixed. Templates have been updated, and some chores have been completed. So now we have 3.6 installed here on our PayloadCMS project, and let's make sure that this works, and then we'll move up to 3.7. All right, and so we see that our project opens, no problem, so there were no bugs introduced from going to 3.6. So now let's go up to 3.7. I'm going to update all of these packages, save, and then we'll go to our terminal and do pnpm I. And while that's running, we can see up here in the features, there's now pagination that's available at the REST and GraphQL level. This has been available for the local API, but now for those who are using REST and GraphQL, you can use pagination. You're now able to exclude entities from the nav sidebar and dashboard without disabling its routes. Now, this is something that you can do using group false for a collection or a global. And so now that this is done updating, I can show you how that looks. So now we can just go back to our admin dashboard and we see everything there. And if we go over to our config, instead of group being navigation, we can set this to false. And once we do that, it'll hide the navigation from the admin UI. So let's put that back as navigation. And that's all really from 3.7 that we need to go over. So we'll jump up over to 3.8 since no bugs were introduced. We'll select all of our payload packages, go up to 3.8, run pnpm install. So for 3.8, you can see that we have rec now exposed to default value and the join field admin.defaultColumns. So we'll go over just those two things in version 3.8. The first is rec is now exposed to default value. where we can use a function using rec as an argument to provide a default value. So we can do that by going to any of our fields that take default value. We have one in our posts config where we have text here, and here we can write default value and then write an async function that exposes the rec argument and open an async arrow function that way. So now we can return rec.payload.find, and we could do anything here that we wanted to using the local API. And that would allow us to return a default value for this text field. The other feature that has been introduced is that join field now has an admin default columns. Now, in order for this one to be shown, we have to go to our users collection and add a new join field. So we're going to open up a new field and we'll do name posts by user. Then we'll do type join on users in collection posts. So now in this we can do admin default columns and choose the default columns we'd like to include in the join field. And so we have title and slug. Why don't we introduce those? So I can save this, come over to our users, and once we get into the user, we can see that the title and the slug have been included. And so if we wanted to add the plain text, let's see if that works as expected. When we refresh, we can see plain text column there as well. So the next release is 3.9. Since no bugs were introduced there for us to troubleshoot, we can upgrade to 3.9. So we'll just run npm install, and we can look at what we need here, which now there's a join field support for relationships inside arrays, which is great to see. You can customize Mongo schema options with collection schema options in the DB MongoDB adapter. And so for 3.9, it looks like we'll only work with the join field support relationships inside arrays. So now we're able to use dot notation in the on option of our join field. In order for us to show this off, we need to add our users to an array. So we'll do that, do name users array. And then we'll do type array, and then we'll add fields, which will have this part included. So now when I save that, our join field isn't going to work anymore. So we need to go over to our users and change this users to users array.users. And that should match this right here. And I hit save. It looks like we'll also need to generate types, run npm dev again, save, and refresh. And since we moved the users field into an array, there currently are no blog posts associated with that posts by the user. So in order for us to show this, we'll go over to our blog posts. We'll just click into the no title one. We're going to go down to users array, and then we're going to just add a user, hit save. And now if we go to our users, we can see now there is a blog post in our posts by user join field. And that's it for version 3.9. Let's go up to 3.10. So we will change all of these fields to 3.10, run npm install. And here we won't spend a whole lot of time. There are now JS docs using admin.description. So what this will do is it'll make use of the admin.description to generate JS docs for field collection and global generated types when you run payload generate types. And that just makes it easier to read and know what your docs are doing. Join field now allows polymorphic relationships. And then there are some Drizzle schema generation updates for DB Postgres and SQLite. So we'll just restart our server and make sure that there are no errors that pop up from going from 3.9 to 3.10. And it looks like there is. So what we're going to do is first we're going to go to 3.11 and see if that solves our issue. Maybe it was a bug in 3.10. And while that's loading, we can see that in 3.11, DB SQLite now has auto-increment as an option in the DB connector setup. Generated IDs persist on create. MongoDB has been optimized, and there are some join table optimizations that have taken place as well. So now that 3.11 is installed, we can go to the terminal, restart our server, and now we see our error from 3.10 has gone away now. So if you do see that error, if you update to 3.10, just update to 3.11 and you'll be good to go. So I hope this was helpful, walking through getting from 3.5 all the way up to 3.11. If it was, feel free to like this content, share it with others who might find it helpful as well. Don't forget to check that you're subscribed to my channel so that you get notified each time I release a new video about PayloadCMS. If you have any suggestions about things to talk about, let me know. I'm happy to cover them. I'll see you on the next one.